What is going on, YouTube people? Today, a little check-in on the old Mega Evolutions. We are now a few days post-release, and typically what we find post-release is the pre-order prices that were out there, specifically on TCG Player, usually have a little bit of a pullback to some degree. However, with Mega Evolutions, we are not seeing that so far. It has basically stayed fairly stable. I have pulled up all the main primary first wave products that have released, and we'll see. This one is a little bit different. They're doing this multi-wave thing, whether by choice or because of distribution or production delays. So there is going to be like a little mini second wave of product coming, I think a few weeks later. So maybe when that second wave hits, it'll push things down a little bit. But as we can see here, booster boxes are sitting right at market price of $300. And if you look at the chart, they have actually climbed from the initial pre-order prices in the high to mid 200s. And now we're basically sitting at $3. And here we are post-release. You see the big spike, the big dump of inventory onto the market. And prices have stayed flat. And we are now just sitting at $300 a box for a brand new release booster box. Now, it is the first set of a new generation. That being said, it does seem like it is set up a lot better than you would typically see out of a base set, with a lot better hits and cards that people are chasing across the board. That has drastically impacted the price of this and just the general overall hype of the Pokemon world in general. It is just wild to see this right out of the gate being at $300. Already outselling some Sword and Shield era booster boxes, and those are well out of print. Already outselling a handful of Scarlet and Violet booster boxes, actually quite a few of them. And I just don't know that I would be a buyer at this price at $300 a box. Seems just absolutely crazy when you look at some of the other boxes that are out there that you could get for the same or less money. There are plenty of boxes I would rather be buying at $300 a box than Mega Evolutions. Now, maybe that ends up being wrong. I am sure I shouldn't say sure, but I am fairly confident that buying at $300 a box, if you hold long enough, you're probably going to be okay. It's just a matter of how long do you have to hold? Have they finally figured out the printing in the future? Who knows? Does the market eventually slow down? Because remember, this product's just coming out. It's going to be in print for a few years. Now, they have shown no signs of being able to keep up with current demand on the secondary market, and I don't expect things to slow down heading into 30th, but if they would and they ramp up the printing, that is a little something to be concerned about with this new era that we are in. So just, file that away in the back of your mind. A lot of your profits are getting eaten up. The easy money is gone. Let me just say it like that. The days of buying it at 100, 120, even 150, even MSRP at 160 a box are long gone. So now you're buying in at $300 a box. There actually is some amount of risk there. It's not insane compared to most collectibles because it's Pokemon, but your easy money's gone. It's going to take a lot more for that box to go from $300 to $600 than it took for the $150 box to go to $300, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. We'll see. The set does seem popular, but all the SKUs are performing very well. Pokemon Center ETBs, they are having their big inventory dump. They are currently sitting at $220 for the Gardevoir and what do we got here? $230 for the Lucario. We'll see which promo ends up being more popular out of these. If there ends up being a little bit of separation, I think it's too soon to say on that. I'm assuming these were printed in equal numbers, but currently sitting at about $225 to $230. Same thing on the ETBs. They're a little bit closer in price, 110, and then we have 105. The Lucario seems to be selling slightly better, but long way to go on this one. That being said, unless you expect more PC ETBs to come to market, if they have a little bit of a second wave, this is probably the cheapest these are going to be. So if you want them, it might not be the worst time to run out and grab them. I'm not a big singles guy, so I can't sit here and pontificate on how the promos are going to perform in the long run and which one I think is going to be more popular than the other. If you have a vibe on that, I guess maybe stack up on one more so than the other one. But I feel like history has basically told us that the cheapest these are ever going to get is essentially release week. And then if there is a second wave, they'll drop down a little bit, but I don't see them getting back down to the release day prices for these bad boys. The Pokemon Center ETBs have become the top tier of the sealed category. I'll pull up the singles here. Once again, singles are not my game, and it's release weekend. I don't know that I trust any of these prices at this point. There is still a lot that kind of has to shake itself out. We haven't seen, anything graded come back, obviously, yet as it's released weekend. What do the gem rates look like? What does the quality control look like? How much inventory hits the market on these individual cards? What ends up, does something end up coming out of the woodwork to become more popular than it is today? It's still way too early to tell any of that stuff. That being said, there are some heavy hitters out of the gate. We have the 2 gold cards going for $500. We have another SIR for $300, another one for $270 with the Lucario, the Latias sitting at $225. I have a feeling that one's going to be pretty sneaky popular. And then the Venusaur at $200, and then the Lilies at just under $200 for the SIRs. And then a few other of the cheaper ones mixed in there. But do keep in mind, like I said earlier, we have a long way to go on these until we really figure out what the market is going to do with them. I think right now, if I wanted to dump money into Mega, and I don't, I have my 2 Pokemon Center ETBs that I got on pre-order. I have my 1 booster box that I got on pre-order. I got 1 case of booster boxes coming for a little bit of a discount to market. I'm pretty good on Mega Evolutions. That's usually my general stance on these sets. If an opportunity arises that I could get in to some more booster boxes at under market price, I'll snag maybe a couple. But generally speaking, I'm not out there pounding the pavement looking for this stuff anymore. That's generally what I do for my positions. Get a couple PC ETBs, get a booster case, call it a day. And then if I run into random retail drops or something like that, or a Target link pops up and I could click on it fast enough, I'll grab whatever comes up to market. But I'm not out there hunting for it anymore. That's generally what I like to do with each set. And then certain ones like the specialty sets, I'll go a little harder on, like 151 or Prismatic Evolutions. If I think there is an angle there that the set might be a banger. I think it's too soon to say on this one. I just don't like the idea of 300 out of the gate for the booster boxes. I could be completely wrong on that and look like an idiot. That'll probably be the case because it's Pokemon and it doesn't make any goddamn sense. I just feel at 300 a box, there are better buys out there on the market. Like I said at the top of the video, we'll see. I'm curious. What are you all doing? Are you willing to throw 300 a box at Mega, or are you spending that $300 somewhere else? And now we are already on the hot and heavy fast track to the second set, Phantasmal Flames. A lot of hype already building for that one, so we'll see what happens with that. We have the new UPC coming soon. A lot of hype building for that. Crazy times, as always, in the land of Charizards. Catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.